All right, from the get, this is week 3, day 3, attachment. This one can take a little bit of time, probably more than the other tasks, and that's okay. Again, we're looking for quality, so answer one question really well, then all the other questions kind of shittily. You're gonna get a lot more out of that. So if you're feeling like, dude, I can't get through all of this, probably my bad. I put a lot of content in this one. My goal there was to get us in touch with things that can really be helpful. Maybe not do a full comprehensive approach to attachment here, but just get us confident and get our toes wet, feet wet, with some concepts here so that we know we can, use those tools in the future as we get more well-versed in them. So attachment is the idea that in the first couple years of our life, the patterns and dynamics that we have with our primary caregiver set the sort of archetype or format or prototype even for what our future relationships, how we navigate our future relationships, what role we consider ourselves having in our future relationships, things of trust and vulnerability and needs. You can go on and on. This is a fascinating field of study, and if this one catches your curiosity, I'd run with it. But the basic premise is that there are 4 attachment styles. Now, these attachment styles will show up a little bit differently in different relationships. Between genders, there can be some differences of how I relate to men versus how I relate to women. There are some differences in my attachment style there. So if you're running into that as well, totally fine. Just something to pay attention to. These aren't hard and fast rules. This isn't something that like you are this and now you're stuck in it. Every single one of these types can improve and grow. Their road just looks a little bit different. So we've got secure attachment style. This is the one we all strive for, right? These individuals with a secure attachment style typically had caregivers who are consistently responsive and supportive. They tend to feel secure in their relationships, comfortable with intimacy, and able to trust and rely on others. God, that sounds nice. I think every once in a while I feel this way, but not all the time. Just a spoiler alert, I'm probably more in the avoidant with some anxious attachment. So you'll notice that it's their caregivers were consistently responsive and supportive. I've got a nearly 2-year-old, and his expression of his needs are not verbal. So this is about how cued in your caregivers were to you, how well they paid attention to you, how well they were able to intuit or understand your needs, and how willing they were to spend their resources, either internal or external, on meeting those needs. So we can have a really positive relationship with a primary caregiver, but that doesn't necessarily mean that some of those attachment needs were met. If there was like some flakiness and inconsistency, especially at those early years, I'm talking like 1 or 2 years, we can have some sort of gut level postures or stances towards relationship that we don't really understand. They're just there and they feel concrete, they feel stuck, they feel heavy. And it feels really scary when we aren't acting by those prototypes, by those archetypes. So it can be hard to change these, and part of it is acceptance of where we're at and knowing that there can be improvement from where we are. Anxious attachment, those with an anxious attachment style typically had caregivers who were, often had caregivers who were inconsistently responsive. They may crave closeness, intimacy, but worry about their partner's commitment and love. Situations in my life made it such that like my primary caregiver did a wonderful job of attending to me as best as she could. But she was going through her own grief, her own loss, her own challenges of being a kind of recently widowed single mom. So like all the love in the world and respect and compassion for that. But there might have been some times when there wasn't quite enough space for me as there would have been in an ideal world. And that isn't a fault. That isn't something wrong. That isn't like a call out or throwing under the bus. I guess I'm just giving an example of like even the best intentions can still have some challenging responses for that person's, child, much like it can be for me. Avoidant attachment. Individuals with an avoidant attachment style usually had caregivers that were emotionally unavailable or unresponsive. They often struggle with intimacy and may appear distant or uninterested in close relationships. Finally, we've got disorganized attachment. This style often develops in individuals who had caregivers who were neglectful or abusive, hot or cold, never knowing what they're going to get. There was no real consistency and no predictability that, hey, if I behave in this way, I get rewarded this way. Or, hey, if I behave in this way, there's consequences this way. It's up and down, it's hot and cold, it's 0 or 100. Not a lot of gray area, or all gray area, not a lot of black and white. They may struggle with trusting others and have real difficulty managing their emotions. So we've got some questions here. Remember, the point here is quality over quantity. So if you just get to one question, a couple questions, these are big questions. They can take some time. I'm real tempted to kind of chop some of this down, but I think there's some real good meat here. So I'm toying around with that. If you have thoughts or feedback, I'd love to hear it.